Okay, let's unpack this. Picture this. An 8-year-old girl standing by the window, calling her mom, waiting for her to come home before dark. But, she never does. That phone call, it really marks the start of a truly unsettling mystery, the disappearance of Paige Birgfeld.
It's a detail that just grabs you, doesn't it? That moment of, childhood expectation turning into real fear. And this wasn't just a missing person case. It unfolded over years and revealed layers of a life no one really saw coming.
Exactly. So today, we're taking a deep dive into the case of Paige Birgfeld. She was a single mother whose vanishing act sent investigators down this incredibly complex path, eventually uncovering a hidden life that was, a stark contrast to her public image. Everything we're discussing comes from a detailed account of this really difficult case.
And our goal here is really to guide you through this story. We want to understand the woman she was, the circumstances that led to her disappearance, the shocking secrets that came to light, and how, after a very, very long time, justice was finally served.
Yeah, it took over 9 years to get a resolution. And from day one, the fears were immediate, intense kidnapping. Maybe worse. Because by all accounts, Paige was just incredibly devoted to her kids. Her disappearance was completely out of character.
To really grasp the whole picture, you need to know a bit about Paige herself. She was born in California back in '73, grew up in a close, loving family. Her father, Frank, he sounds like quite a guy, law degree, football coach, involved in scouting, even finance regulation.
Wow.
Yeah, and her brother, Greg, he's now a prominent surgeon. The family moved to Colorado when she was younger.
A strong family background then. What was she like as a person?
Well, the descriptions consistently paint this picture of someone, beautiful, kind, good-natured, very family-focused, friendly, always smiling. People seemed to genuinely like her a lot, and she loved to dance.
Did that passion for dance lead her anywhere specific early on?
It did, though maybe somewhere unexpected for a short time. We learned she worked as a nude dancer in Denver briefly when she was about 21. Sources say she earned a truly staggering amount back then, reportedly, around $400,000 a year. Huge money.
$400,000? Wow.
Yeah, but she stopped fairly quickly after meeting her first husband.
That was Lance Birgfeld, right?
Yes. Married in '95, the source describes their relationship as pretty amicable, but they divorced in '97. The main issue seems to have been different ideas about having children. Paige wanted a big family, Lance wasn't ready, didn't seem keen on kids. But the fact that the divorce was friendly, that's kind of notable later.
Okay, so first, marriage ends amicably. Then came her second marriage to Rob Dixon.
Right, married Rob in '98. He's described as a good guy, funny, liked jokes. They had 3 kids together. Jesse, the oldest, then sons Taft and Colby. Colby was only 3 when Paige disappeared. Rob was seemingly a successful businessman, inherited his father's company, had a taste for nice things, owned 6 sports cars, including a Ferrari. Yeah. Initially, Paige was a stay-at-home mom, living what looked like a comfortable life.
Sounds pretty good on the surface anyway, but that changed.
It did. Rob was apparently a bit of a risk taker with investments and also spent money very freely, kind of carelessly. His business eventually failed, leading them right to the edge of bankruptcy. That financial strain, as you can imagine, put huge pressure on the marriage. Lots of conflict.
And the tension escalated, became dangerous.
Unfortunately, yes. The source talks about some really concerning domestic incidents. In October 2004, during an argument, Rob allegedly threatened to kill the children if Paige didn't come home. Police were called, the kids were okay. Rob claimed it was a misunderstanding, stress.
That's a terrifying thing to say.
Absolutely. And then about a year later, October 2005, things got physical. Rob reportedly physically assaulted Paige while she was holding one of the kids, hit her in the face. Paige pressed charges. Rob was charged with third-degree assault.
Those incidents, yeah, sounds like there's no coming back from that.
Pretty much. They were basically the reason for the divorce, which was finalized in September 2006. Rob was later declared bankrupt, moved across the country to Philadelphia. Paige got full custody. Suddenly, she's a single mom, fully responsible for 3 young kids facing huge challenges.
Right. And this is where she seems to tap into that entrepreneurial spirit again, starts building businesses.
Exactly. To support her family, Paige just threw herself into new ventures. Started a children's dance school, brain dance, even made the costumes herself for the shows. She also became a top sales rep for Pampered Chef kitchenware. Did so well, she earned a free family trip to the Caribbean.
She sounds incredibly resourceful, determined.
She really was. And her success meant she could afford a better place. She rented this house in Grand Junction, Colorado, It's about 250 miles west of Denver, quiet town near Utah, but the rent was significant, $6,000 a month.
Wow. And to manage everything, she needed help with the kids.
Yes, hired a close friend, Carolina, as a nanny. Carolina would help look after the children when Paige was working or had appointments. So from the outside, you see this picture. Devoted mother, working incredibly hard, juggling businesses to give her kids a stable life.
And then came that Thursday, June 28th, 2007.
The day everything just changed. Carolina was with the children at the house in Grand Junction. Paige was expected back in the evening like usual.
But she didn't come home.
No. Hours passed, no Paige. Carolina tried calling, no answer, no message, nothing. For Paige, who was so dedicated, remember, the kids were 8, 6, and 3. This was completely unlike her. Red flags went up immediately.
I can only imagine the worry just building and building.
It has been awful. Caroline stayed with the kids. By 9 p.m., still nothing. Jessie, the 8-year-old, asked Carolina to call her mom again. Went straight to voicemail. And Jessie, in that moment of worry, maybe a little kid frustration, left that message we mentioned. Mommy, you're mean. You said you'd be home before dark, but you're still not home.
Hearing that, it just gets you. The simple expectation of a child.
It really does. The concern quickly spread. Her dad, Frank, called from Denver, couldn't reach her, left a worried message. Her brother, Greg, couldn't get through either. Everyone close knew something was wrong because she always kept in touch. Her kids were everything.
So the next day, the search officially starts.
Yes, Friday morning, Frank drove the 4 hours from Denver, couldn't find her, reported her missing to the police. Greg came out to help with the kids. Greg later talked about how worried his dad was, said it was the first time he'd ever seen Frank cry.
Were there immediate search efforts?
Oh yeah, extensive ones. As days passed with no word, over 200 volunteers joined in, searching land, water, hoping she was still alive. Frank was relentless, putting everything into finding his daughter.
Days turned into weeks. Then what?
It was 3 days after she vanished, Sunday, July 1st. Emergency services got a call about a red Ford Focus on fire. In a parking lot, only about 2 miles from Paige's house, firefighters, police rushed there.
And it was her car.
Confirmed, Paige's car. Finding a missing person's car burned like that. It's almost always a terrible sign. Foul play seemed highly likely.
Did they find anything in the car? Clues?
The forensics went over it carefully. Interestingly, no human remains, no DNA inside, which was maybe a small shred of hope, suggesting she wasn't killed in the car. But they did find a notebook. Paige used it to track her work appointments.
A work notebook? That could be huge.
Absolutely. But something crucial was missing. The pages for June 26th, 27th, 28th, and 29th ripped out. That immediately suggested someone intentionally removed them, probably to hide who she was meeting right around when she vanished.
And were there other clues about who might have driven it last?
Yes, this was very significant. Police noticed the driver's seat was pushed all the way back. Paige was about 5'5", 165 centimeters.
Yeah.
That seat position, totally wrong for her height. Strongly suggested a much larger person, likely a man, had driven it recently. They also found traces of gasoline on the driver's side floor. Confirmed arson.
So the burned car immediately shifted things. Not just missing, but very likely a crime.
Exactly. The main theory became kidnapping, murder. Police started focusing hard on potential suspects, starting with those closest to Paige.
Which naturally brings them back to the ex-husbands.
Right, standard procedure, really. Look at family, partners first. Paige had 2 exes, Lance Birgfeld and Rob Dixon.
Let's talk about Rob Dixon again. Given the history you mentioned, the threats, the assault, he must have seemed like a prime suspect.
Oh, absolutely. People close to Paige told police she was genuinely terrified of him after those incidents.
Yeah.
The source even mentioned some personal writing of hers, powerful stuff, where she described her kids asking if their dad would kill her. And Paige herself writing she couldn't imagine their lives after Rob killed her. So based on that history, yeah, he had motive, a history of violence towards her.
Did the police question Rob?
They did, and his alibi was solid, rock solid. He was living 2,000 miles away in Philadelphia on the day Paige disappeared. Cell phone records confirmed it. So with that verified alibi, he was effectively ruled out.
Okay, so then they look at Lance Birkfeld, the first husband. You said the divorce was amicable, but he was closer, only about 4 hours away in Denver.
True, the distance wasn't an issue. But people close to Paige seemed genuinely surprised he'd even be looked at. They insisted the relationship ended well, no known reason for him to harm her.
Did police talk to Lance too?
They did. Lance told them he'd met Paige for a picnic the day before she vanished, June 27th, at a park sort of halfway between Denver and Grand Junction. He said Paige even called him later that day, checking he got home okay to Denver. Claimed he didn't know she was missing until he tried to call her that weekend. They had plans to meet again. He even called the police himself when he couldn't reach her.
That sounds like they were still civil, maybe even friendly.
It does. And just like with Rob, police checked Lance's alibi with phone records. Confirmed. 4 hours away in Denver on the day Paige disappeared. So he was also ruled out.
Okay, ex-husband's cleared. Initial leads are drying up. Where does the investigation go when you hit a wall like that?
This is where the story takes that really unexpected turn. With the immediate circle cleared and the trail going cold, investigators decided, okay, we need to dig much deeper into all aspects of Paige's life. Her work, her businesses, everything.
And that's when they uncovered the secret.
Exactly. They went to the office linked to her kitchenware business, thinking they'd find sales stuff. Instead, they found out this business was mainly a front for something else entirely.
And that something else was Models in the Cover Corporation.
Precisely. Paige's second, totally secret business. A company providing massage services to a wealthy clientele.
Can you describe those services based on the source?
The source details that these included nude massage and also enhanced services if clients requested them, specifically mentioning manual stimulation to climax. The company also arranged women for bachelor parties, and sometimes sexual intercourse happened then, though the source is clear, Paige herself did not provide that service.
That's, huge contrast to the dance school and kitchenware.
A completely different world. And this secret business, very successful financially, it brought in significant income, which explained how she afforded that expensive house and supported her kids without anyone else's help.
You mentioned Paige didn't provide certain services. What was her specific role?
The source says Paige herself stuck to nude dancing when clients specifically requested her, and she reportedly had a strict rule. Clients weren't allowed to touch her during these sessions.
And she used an alias?
Yes. In that world, she was Carrie.
How secret is this?
Very secret. Only a tiny circle of close friends knew. Her family, parents, brother Greg, absolutely no idea about Carrie or this side of her life. Interestingly, the source does mention her first husband, Lance, did know about this business.
How did her family react when the police uncovered this?
As you'd expect, completely shocked. Just incredibly difficult for them to process. Her brother Greg said later that, initially, if someone had suggested this about his sister, he'd have been furious. But once the reality sank in, and they understood she was likely doing it to support her kids, as a single mom, keeping it secret to protect them, they came to terms with it. With immense sadness, of course.
This discovery must have totally shifted the focus of the investigation.
Oh, absolutely. Police attention swung right around to the clients of Models in the Cover. They started digging through phone records, messages from the office phone, looking for anyone who might have had a reason to harm Paige.
Were there many clients?
Numerous calls, messages. But one client stood out pretty quickly, called himself Jim. Unlike most others who used real traceable numbers, Jim only used burner phones. Prepaid, disposable, instantly suspicious. Plus, he contacted Paige frequently, including on June 27th, the day before she disappeared, one of the days the notebook pages were missing for.
So finding Jim became the priority.
Exactly. Police used phone tower data from the burner phones, reviewed CCTV from stores like Walmart, where you buy those phones, and eventually, through that painstaking work, they identified the man using the alias Jim.
And who was he?
Lester Ralph Jones, age 56.
Did they bring Jones in?
They did. When confronted, Jones admitted he was a client, acknowledged meeting Paige at least once.
What did they find out about his background?
His background check showed a history of domestic violence. He had served 3 years in prison back in 1999 for assaulting his first wife. At the time Paige disappeared, he was living with his second wife, Helen.
So, a suspicious client, history of violence, connected to her secret life. How did the case against him start building up?
Several crucial pieces started clicking into place. It became a strong circumstantial case. Carolina, the nanny, she recognized Lester Jones, told police he came to Paige's office frequently, specifically asking for Paige. Requested sexual intercourse, which Paige always refused. Carolina also remembered him paying Paige a lot, $4,000 just for a nude dance.
So he was focused on Paige specifically. And Carolina mentioned threats.
Yes, this was key for potential motive. According to Carolina, Jones had threatened Paige, said he'd expose her secret business to her family friends if she didn't agree to have sex with him. That threat, directly tied to her secret life, gave him a possible reason to silence her.
Were there physical connections?
Yes, really significant ones. Police noted Jones was very tall, 6'5", matched their earlier observation about the driver's seat in Paige's burned car being pushed way back. consistent with a much larger driver. Also, critically, Jones worked as an RV salesman and mechanic, his workplace, directly across the parking lot where Paige's car was found burned.
That's a geographical link that's hard to ignore.
Very hard. And when they asked him about the burner phones, Jones flat out denied using them. But police had the Walmart CCTV footage of him buying them. Lying about that immediately made them think, okay, he's hiding something big. Then, a search of Jones' workspace turned up some strange items. Women's lingerie Victoria's Secret brand was mentioned, condoms, Viagra, and a container of kerosene, an accelerant.
Not direct proof of murder, but definitely adds to a disturbing picture.
Exactly. Adds to the circumstantial evidence. But then came the more direct physical link.
The canine evidence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Highly trained dogs were brought in, sniffed Paige's burned car, then Jones's white Dodge pickup truck. And here's the powerful part. 3 different dogs independently alerted indicated Paige's scent was present in the bed of Jones's truck. That's strong physical evidence linking Paige to his vehicle around the time she disappeared.
3 different dogs, all hitting on her scent in his truck. That's incredibly compelling.
Very hard evidence to argue against. And then there was this really strange incident during his interrogation.
Tell us about that.
Jones was questioned for over 5 hours. As it was wrapping up, police were about to let him go. He suddenly made these bizarre, unprompted comments. Reportedly asked, "Can I get it?" The officer, confused, said, "Yes, sure." Jones then said, "I didn't mean it that way." Officer still confused. Then Jones just blurts out, "Are you asking me where I'm going to bury the body?" "Yeah." The officer was stunned, asked him to repeat it. Jones repeated, "Are you asking me where I'm going to bury the body?" When the officer asked why he'd say that, Jones reportedly just paused. Didn't answer.
That sounds, even if he was confused, that sounds incredibly incriminating. Like a slip.
Hugely incriminating. His wife, Helen, later told police he'd taken a lot of sleeping pills, maybe explaining the confusion. Jones also left a note for his wife that night, said he was pleading with God for forgiveness, claimed police were trying to frame him, insisted he never did it, but couldn't handle the interrogation pressure.
Did his wife give him an alibi for the night Paige disappeared?
No. In fact, investigators confirmed Helen was not home that night, which meant Jones had no alibi witness for that critical time. Contradicted any story he might try to tell about being home.
Okay, so you have this mountain of circumstantial evidence. Size match, location, burner's motive, canine hits, that bizarre statement, no alibi, but still no body. Did the case stall again?
It did. Frustratingly, yes. Despite everything pointing overwhelmingly at Lester Jones, without Paige's body, they couldn't definitively prove murder, couldn't determine cause of death. The case went cold for about 5 years.
5 agonizing years for her family, just waiting.
Absolutely heartbreaking. Then finally, March 2012, a breakthrough. A hiker, way out in a remote area called Wells Gulch, south of Grand Junction, discovered skeletal remains.
And they were able to identify them.
Yes. The remains' skull, jawbone forensically identified. They belonged to Paige Birgfeld. Confirmed everyone's worst fears. They found tape residue on the skull, suggesting she might have been gagged or bound with tape. Couldn't determine an exact cause of death from the bones alone, but the evidence screamed kidnapping and murder.
Any other clues found nearby?
Yes. Personal items belonging to Paige were found scattered along Highway 50, about 14 miles from Grand Junction, kind of heading towards where her body was found. Things like blank checks, credit cards, health insurance info. Looked like the killer maybe tossed them out the window while driving away.
So, with the body found and identified, plus all the previous evidence, was that finally enough for an arrest?
Yes. That discovery, identifying Paige's remains, it was the missing piece. Combined with everything they already had on Lester Jones, they finally had probable cause. Jones was arrested, charged with first-degree murder.
And how did the legal process go from there?
It still took several more years. Jones went to trial in November 2014. Now, the source states that at some point during this period, maybe leading up to sentencing, Lester Jones reportedly confessed to the murder.
He confessed. After all that time denying it, what was the final verdict?
December 2016. Lester Jones found guilty. Murder and kidnapping. Sentenced to life in prison, no possibility of parole.
Did he ever explain clearly why he did it?
He reportedly told police his motive was simple. He didn't want his wife finding out he was seeing Paige as a client. That's it. He never gave details about how he killed her or his plan, so the exact specifics of her death, still somewhat unknown.
So from her disappearance in 2007 to the sentencing in 2016, over 9 years for the case to finally close.
9 long years. For justice, and for Paige's family to get some kind of closure. Her parents, her brother, they visited the site where her remains were found. left flowers, photos. They mark June 27th now as the anniversary of her death.
And her children.
The family committed to raising Paige's kids, their grandkids, nephews, niece, the way she would have wanted. The children are being raised by their father, Rob Dixon, with lots of support from the grandparents and uncle. The source mentions Jessie, the oldest daughter. She was 8 when her mom vanished, 17, and graduating high school around the time Jones was convicted. She talked about having a good relationship with her dad and emphasized they'd never forget their mom, everything she did for them.
It's just a truly tragic story. A single mother working so hard, making sacrifices, and her life is taken in this senseless, brutal way.
It is heartbreaking. Really underscores the lengths she went to for her kids and how those efforts, tragically, put her in the path of someone dangerous. Her death just left this huge hole in her family's lives.
This case really makes you think, doesn't it? About the different sides of a person's life. The parts we show the world. The parts we keep hidden.
It does. Paige Birgfeld was clearly a devoted mom, a determined entrepreneur, but she also had this secret life she felt she needed to protect. And in this case, the intersection of those worlds.
Well, it brought her into contact with someone whose own hidden darkness cost her everything.
It makes you consider how sometimes the things we do to protect one part of our lives can, inadvertently expose us to danger somewhere else.
Which maybe leaves you with this thought. How do the secrets we keep, even when we think they're for good reasons, create vulnerabilities? Unforeseen connections that could lead to consequences far beyond anything we could ever imagine.
A lot to think about from this deep dive into the Paige Birgfeld case. Thank you for joining us.
Our pleasure.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive.